All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new movie review. And today I'm reviewing the new film just released in theaters called Twisters, which is a direct sequel to the original film from 1996 with a name very similar called Twister. First of all, people should know going in it is a direct sequel. There are some things that happen in the film that tie it directly to the original, and I was happy to see some of those things in the film, and you could tell by the logo. And the logo is exactly the same, except it has an S on the end instead of just Twister. They just add the end for Twisters. And this is a direct sequel to the original. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about the cast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the music, and I'll talk a little bit about the plot. And at the end, I'm going to talk about one thing I did not like about the film, which I thought kind of jumped the shark a little bit. Now, first of all, this is definitely an updated version of a film, a disaster-type film like this, a destruction film. And I will tell you this was definitely more intense than the original, for sure. There's something about that original, though, that has this charm to it, and I think a lot of it had to do with the music, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. Now, this movie was directed by Lee Isaac Chung, and the writers were Mark L. Smith, Joseph Kosinski, and Michael Crichton. So they're all contributors to this. And let's talk about the cast here. So there are three main cast members here, the biggest being Daisy Edgar Jones, who plays Kate Carter. She is the heart and soul of this film through and through. And like I said, you're going to want to stick around until the end. You have Glenn Powell, who plays Tyler Owens, who is a YouTube star who also chases after, he calls himself the Tornado Wrangler. And then you have Anthony Ramos, who plays Javi. He has direct ties to Daisy Edgar Jones' character, Kate, in the film. And they're a big part of how this story kicks off. And I'm not going to tell you or spoil anything in regards to the film itself. Now, so first of all, the story to this, well, before I get to the story, there's one other character in here for those who watch my channel, mainly for the DC content. David Corenswet, who is playing Superman, is in this film, and he has a supporting role. And I'd heard different things about his acting. I've never seen him in anything before, so this is my first look at him, and I thought he did a great job in his role. He was exactly who he should have been. I'm a professional actor, and I really enjoyed what he did. He reminded me a lot of John Krasinski, just his acting. He just seemed like a real, normal, down-to-earth individual. While some of the characters in the movie were a little more cartoonish, he was a very grounded character and kind of technical, but he sounded a lot like John Krasinski, and I thought he acted pretty similar. And so it'll be interesting to see how he can pull off Superman. I still don't think he's going to be able to pull it off. Well, not necessarily him, but James Gunn, but that's a whole different story. So let's talk about the story to this film. I'm going to keep it spoiler-free. First of all, this movie is a direct sequel. Like I said, there are some things that happen, especially early on in the film, where you will know it is directly tied to the original, even though they don't just come out and say it. And the movie was definitely a deeper story than the first film, but it's not perfect. It actually follows a very similar story path where you have two groups of people going after Twisters to do various things. I'm not going to give anything away in the film. Like I said, I want you to go in and be surprised. If you were a fan of the original, I think you'll be a fan of this one. And so that's about all I'm going to say about the story. And some of these characters do take an interesting turn as far as their characters go. Most of the movie, I would say 90% of it is predictable, but not necessarily in a bad way. You're going to enjoy this summer blockbuster film that's a disaster film, and it definitely hits those marks pretty well. Now, the music, I think, was the worst part of the film. There were way too many songs in it. I would say that 70% of them were Western songs, which are appropriate for the film, but I don't like songs in film to begin with. I think there was one R&B song and something that sounded kind of like soft rap at the beginning. I'm not sure, and that's where I think the movie really was a departure from the first. The first had a very engaging score to it. The score to this one is almost non-existent. Only at times where there's great peril you have basic music. It is definitely not on the level of the original film. And I really think the music that they added takes away from, the emotion and the pull that it's supposed to have from you. So that was a huge miss for me in this film. I would have rather have had a more epic score. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we do hear hints of the original score in several parts of this film. I'd say like 75% of the way through, there's a piano piece that I think is directly tied to the original Twister film, but it's very slow, and if you're not listening, you won't catch it. But that's about it. Outside of that, it's just it's just I didn't like the score. I didn't like the music that they chose to have in the film. I thought it was a huge miss. Big departure from the first. Now, let's talk about the area of the film that bothered me but did not bother my wife. To me, especially at the end, Kate becomes Kate Skywalker. That's all I'm going to say. She's actually, at the beginning of this, and I'm not giving anything away, she's a prodigy when it comes to weather. She just knows things. She can feel them. It's what she does. There's no rhyme or reason for it. There's no explanation for it. It's just what she does. And at the end, there's an event that happens where I thought it kind of jumped the shark a little bit and was, again, something that Hollywood has to do in just about every movie today. Now, the good news is they do not diminish the men in this film like a lot of other Hollywood movies have recently. The men are on the same level as the women in this film, and that stays true to the original. Like I said, except for one thing that I raised my eyebrows out. My wife thought it was great. My two daughters I went with thought it was great. But to me, it was just too Hollywood for sure. But outside of that, I was happy to see that there is no political message to this. It was pretty straightforward. They don't beat any political message down your throat, which is nice to see. This is a movie where you go, and you have fun, you get tense, you stay engaged, and the movie succeeded at that. So let's talk about my score on this compared to the original. We just watched the original as a family. I may do a retro review on that shortly, but there's a charm to that original film that I really enjoyed, where I would give that first film 4 stars. This film didn't quite live up to that. It's a better film story-wise, and definitely with special, the CGI and the special effects were better, and it's definitely more tense. But there's a charm to that first film because of the score and the specific actors that were in it that were not carried over to this film. Does that make this a bad film? Not at all, but I do give it 3.5 stars. So if you're a fan of the original, I think you're going to go enjoy this. It's definitely a good summer blockbuster film to go see, one of the better films I've seen this year. And if you're interested, definitely go check it out. If you have seen the film, please chime in below and let me know what you thought. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. It helps the YouTube algorithm. And I like my reviews to kind of get a bigger audience here. All right, guys, I do appreciate all the support. We will see you on the next review.